Hey guys, welcome to another live show, another live She Knows Arsenal. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel and all of that great and wonderful stuff. I feel like I'm a little bright. I know that's like usually not a bad thing, but a little too bright. Let me just throw those back a little bit because that's a little bit better. Anyways, let me know if you guys can see me, hear me, all that kind of stuff. Let me just fix this. Yeah, we have so much to talk about because there's actual good news on the injury front for Arsenal. These are always like all fucked up, but there's actually some like good injury news. And then I also just want to touch on conversations around Ben White and the competition between him and Timber. Arteta saying that having like left-footed player on the left-footed side or left-handed side has given us a new dimension. And also I saw a tweet after the game that, you know, a lot of people co-signed, of course, that like we played so much better because we didn't have Odegaard. So I definitely wanted to kind of like just throw that in there, the conversation, because I do think after rewatching the game, that I don't think there's any truth to us being better without Odegaard. I feel like it's more we play differently, and yeah, we'll talk about it. So make sure you guys are smashing the likes and all that kind of stuff. Let me just make sure people know we're live because sometimes I don't retweet it. And then it's kind of like, yeah, I just need to make sure. But yeah, let me know in the chat how you guys are thinking and feeling. I am personally feeling good because we have some players back from injury. It's not Odegaard, but we'll take what we can get. Also, for those of you guys who are in the UK as well as Ireland, and you guys are interested in going to the PSG game tomorrow, I have started another giveaway for those tickets. I have 2 tickets to the PSG game for tomorrow. The winner will actually be announced tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. So I know it's a little bit of like crunch time, but we only had so much time between the Leicester game and the PSG game. Oh my gosh, Beckham. All right, then come in. So the information for the giveaway is available in the description box. And so all you have to do is, it's very simple to enter. Follow my personal Twitter account, as well as the She Knows Arsenal account. Follow the official Coma V app. The tickets are courtesy of Coma V. And then I will announce, and then also repost that same tweet. And then I will announce the winner tomorrow morning, which is like midnight for me. But yeah, so that's all the information that you guys need for that. I'll say that again before the end of the show. Also, now you want to get out. See how they are? So ungrateful. But yeah, let's see who's all in here. Moss Sports World says Waneri getting schooled by Odegaard. Well schooled by Odegaard. Mubarak says, but I think Ben is only injured. Most players are available and fit for PSG. Shamaria says that first half we played scintillating football, but we're at our best with Odegaard in the team. Let's start there, because I do want to say that rewatching that, I rewatched probably about 65 minutes of it. I didn't need to see the rest. The first half was probably what a lot of us needed, because after the stressful games that we had, Atalanta away, the Etihad, Tottenham away, Aston Villa away, you're just kind of looking for a game where you're super dominant at home and you can just like relax. Obviously, we made hard work of it in the second half, but ultimately, like, we totally battered them. I think that's like what the most chances created by any team in a single match, touches in the box, all of that kind of stuff. And I do believe Arsenal, and I will check right now, are top of the most chances created or big chances created. A lot of that has to go to Bukayo Saka, who I think had 8 big chances that he created, or he had 8 chances created and then 4 big chances or some nonsense like that against Leicester. We absolutely cooked them. You know, it's so unfortunate that we did it. Like it doesn't feel the same because we had to give up those 2 goals and it took so long for us to get those next 2 goals. But like genuinely, we totally battered them. Like it's not even funny. So yeah, let's see. Wins, attack, defense. Let's see. Attack. Team play. Let's see. Where are they? Because I don't know where everybody finds these stats all the time. Team play, through balls, corners taken, passes, shots. I saw something about where are the chances created on here. They're like hiding them from me. All-time stats, milestones, head-to-head player comparison. Hold on real quick. I'll find it. I don't know. I can't find it now. I'm going to keep looking for it, actually. Because I know it's on here. Okay. Club stats, right? It says goals, general. Where is it? It says goals, hit the woodwork, attack, goals, assists. This is annoying me down right now. Because I know there's one here where it says chances created, and now I can't find it. But Arsenal are top of that, I think. I thought I saw something about Arsenal being top for chances created. And I know Saka had like 8 chances created, 4 big chances created, all type of stuff, you know. So we were definitely super, super like dominant in that game. It just like those 2 goals that we gave up were just unfortunate. But yeah, I think you know, rewatching the game, one thing that I really appreciated, you know, I'd said it during the match that or afterwards that the biggest plus for the game was Martinelli getting back into like a decent like bit of like form or looking more like his normal self. I still feel like he's quite a bit off of that because if you go back and watch some of the clips of him from the 2022-2023 season, he's still not anywhere near that. But he does look more confident. And I think some of that is because of Calafiori, because Calafiori likes to get forward. He's a lot more attacking. He's more comfortable in and around the box. And they seem to have like almost like an instant chemistry on that side. And then he's just getting into better positions and backing himself a little bit more. So the goal that he scored where Timber crosses the ball, and I want to talk about that too in just a second, because I think those rotations on the right-hand side actually give us a different framework of how the right-hand side could work to give us a little bit more bang for our buck. But Martinelli, it was the most instinctual I've seen him in a very, very long time. He just backs up, like the ball is not even perfectly to him. He has to take a step back and then he hits it first time and boom, it's in the back of the net. Every other time that I've seen him shoot this season, it feels like he's really thinking about it, like really hard. And so that was really nice to see. His pass back to Trossard was good. His simple cut back, you know, that's our bread and butter. Boom, 2 goals. And I think even just him getting to the byline and some of his dribbling, you can just see like he's feeling himself a little bit more, which is so important. No matter how I feel about Martinelli in terms of how I rank him in terms of like versus our other attackers or, you know, against other people, you know, other players outside of Arsenal, Arsenal will not do anything this season without Martinelli being in good form. We just don't have enough clinical finishers. We don't have enough goal scorers. And so when you have a team of like Havertz, Saka, and Odegaard, those are three players that are more facilitators, more of the creative players in the team. Not necessarily Havertz, but Havertz is not really like a clinical finisher. Genuinely, the only clinical people that we have in this team are Martinelli when he's on form and Trossard. So we can't afford not to have him, on business. So I think Martinelli was probably the biggest takeaway from that game, which was super important. Now, in terms of the attack on the right-hand side, one thing I will say about Timber is that I do think that he can be just as good, if not better, than Ben White in the final third. I think his cutback to Martinelli in the first half was really, really good. I think he had instant chemistry with Saka because Saka is just so intelligent. He can pretty much play with anybody. The underlaps, the overlaps, Timber also finding the balls in between the lines. I think he has so much to his game. And so the right-hand side, despite not having Odegaard, really clicked. And Timber coming inside at times and Trossard going outside at times created good positioning for Saka, where I think what people are usually like, when people's biggest like complaints about Odegaard is that he crowds Saka's spot. I think Saka and Odegaard want to be in similar positions. And because they're both left-footed, it's very obvious what they want to do. They both want to cut in. It's very obvious that both of them want to go inside. But when you have Trossard, who naturally wants to go to the outside because he's right-footed, those angles are different and gives us a little bit more of like a natural situation. On both sides, both wingers want to come inside, and both fullbacks were okay holding the width and coming inside. But you had Trossard going back and forth on either side. But on that right-hand side, where we normally don't have this, Trossard was holding the width sometimes and making those overlaps. It gave us something different. And so you can do those things with Odegaard as well. Just Odegaard, when he plays, he's so because he's so left-footed dominant, he doesn't really have the ability to like do those same things that Trossard does. So I just think it gives us a different look. I think it's different, not necessarily better. I don't think anybody can say that like had Odegaard been there, we wouldn't have been just as dominant. Nobody can say that if Odegaard had been there, we wouldn't have won the game. I think ultimately, like, we just were different, and some of those same principles could happen with Odegaard in there. Arteta just needs to be more flexible, and maybe with different players playing in those positions, hopefully, like, when Odegaard comes back, maybe we could get something a little bit different going there. Maybe he allows Odegaard to go to the left-hand side, float to the left-hand side, create more space for Saka, things like that. Because I think we are quite rigid, and Arteta actually admitted that our entire attack goes through Odegaard. And I think when Odegaard wasn't there, when we were playing against lesser opposition, the onus was on more than one person. It was on Saka, it was on Trossard, and then it was also on our fullbacks. When Odegaard is there, it's like, get the ball to Odegaard and then we'll start our attack. I think that's the main issue that we have, is that not only are we so reliant upon Odegaard to start every single attack and kind of orchestrate it, but there's nobody even on the other side to do anything similar. So yeah, I saw the tweets of people saying like, we would have never been able to do this with Odegaard. I think that's bullshit. I think we all know that. Anybody with half a brain knows that we would have been just as dominant with Odegaard. But I did think that some of the angles that we were able to create on the right-hand side were different. The left-hand side was so much more fluid, and just Trossard being able to overlap, which is what I know a lot of people want Saka to have so he can come more central, helped, but with Odegaard, you can do that in different ways. You just have to allow him to float to the left-hand side. You can still have Timber overlapping, and it's the same thing to me. But listen, it's also good that we're finding different solutions to not having Odegaard, because we're going to talk about injuries in just a second and who's here, who's available and who's not for PSG. But I don't think there's ever going to be a time this season where we have absolutely everyone. I think the boys are playing too much football, not just our boys, but just in general. Football is so they're so unserious when it comes to the calendar, and people are playing so much football. So for me personally, I feel like I've already come to the conclusion that there's never going to be a time where we have absolutely everyone. And so it's important to have solutions to not having key players. And so Trossard, I thought, did a pretty good job in the 10. Winery is also an option. Marino will be back. That'll give us something different. So yeah, I think you could also see, you know, Trossard, Marino, and Rice starting some games. You could definitely see that, as a midfield combination. So I won't say that Odegaard being out is a blessing in disguise, because I feel like, you know, you never want one of your better players to be injured, but it does force Arteta to find other solutions. Um, and that's super important, because you just never know what's going to happen. And so I'm happy. Like, I'm totally you know, uh, happy about the fact that we won the Leicester game, even though we made it difficult. We could just put that behind us now. When Neri came on and showed once again why he should be getting minutes, which is great. And we're looking healthier on the injury front. So yeah, let's see what you guys are saying. Line 9 says, now that Winery is cooking, what's the asking price for Odegaard? Listen, I think there's a lot of weirdos, and then, no offense to you, Line 9, I love you down, but the way that rivals speak about Odegaard and the way that our fan base speaks about Odegaard, I think speaks to just the ridiculousness about Arsenal fans, and how we just don't understand how good some of our players are. Rivals rate Odegaard as our best player, not even Saka. Odegaard is our best player, and so the idea that because Winery is all of a sudden playing well, and he's not even really played a full Premier League game, now all of a sudden it's just get Odegaard out, when in reality, would it be nice to have a blossoming Winery and a really good Odegaard? Why would we need to sell Odegaard? I do feel like there's just so much get this player out, now it's time to sell. And we have really obvious players that should probably leave the team. Our captain is probably not one of them. One of our top 3 best players is probably not one of them. So I do think that unfortunately, some people just need to calm down, genuinely. John Doe says, Odegaard is a good player, but he should not be the best player in our team because of his deficiencies. I mean, I don't really know what to tell you. I feel like Odegaard and Rice in particular over the last season have suffered from not having a balanced midfield. And if you don't feel like Odegaard is the most creative, because I don't think Odegaard is an Ozil type player. We lack that type of player in our team. Odegaard to me is more of a David Silva type of player. But if you had that player, then I don't think people would be looking for Odegaard to be something that he's not. And I think often what we do is, instead of being excited about what the player actually is and trying to figure out how we can bring in somebody else that does the things that that player can't do, we beat down on the player that we have for not being somebody else. And often Odegaard is not appreciated by our fan base because he's not Kevin De Bruyne, when he was never Kevin De Bruyne. He was never Kevin De Bruyne. There is no other Kevin De Bruyne. So I think if we could, because first of all, nobody had a problem with Odegaard when we had Xhaka in the team. Nobody cared. Everyone loved Odegaard when Xhaka was in the team, because we actually had a balanced midfield, and everybody's little things that they couldn't do was compensated for by somebody else. So Odegaard's maybe not being an Ozil creator was compensated by Xhaka being able to do basic things on that left-hand side as a box-to-box midfielder. We don't have that right now. So Odegaard has to be our end-all, be-all. Kevin De Bruyne is not asked to drop deep and get the ball off of Raya and start our attacks. He's not asked to sit in the center circle, and be a deep lying type of playmaker. He's not asked to do any of those types of things. All he has to do is be creative, and that's it. And so I think with Rice and Odegaard, I think that they have very similar cases where everything that they're not is what people are like. They want them to be completely different players. Anything that they don't do is picked apart, when in reality, there's no player that does absolutely everything. It's just we have suffered so long for not having that other midfielder that does the things that Rice doesn't do and does the things that Odegaard doesn't do. And if we just had those players in the team, Marino is one of them, maybe even getting somebody like a Havertz type of player, we wouldn't be so disappointed with Odegaard and Rice not being able to do those things. But the idea that like they need to be everything is so disingenuous. When you look at other teams, those players can't do everything too, but their teams are more balanced, So Odegaard, for me, I think, Odegaard is a fantastic player and he's not really a problem. I think people are trying to make him into a problem because, they're bored or something. Diehard says we haven't lost a game without Odegaard. Well, we didn't lose a game while he was there though, too. So what's the point of this tweet? What's the point? One thing I can say is that without Odegaard in difficult games, we weren't able to control the midfield, have any sort of level of possession. We couldn't attack. We couldn't pass the ball. We couldn't do anything. So no, we're good enough to beat Spurs. We could beat Spurs even when we were not a good team. So being able to beat them without Odegaard is not really like, it's kind of like neither here nor there. But, for me, if Odegaard played for any other team in the world, Arsenal fans would be on their knees to have him. But we're very ungrateful with the players that we actually have. Same thing with Gabriel. It's always get him out. He's not good enough. Get Rice out of here. He's not good enough. Get Odegaard out of here. He's not good enough. It's just like the way that other people look at our players. If you just look at that, we're very lucky to have some of the players that we have. FB says, do you think Arteta would let us have the ball because Luis Enrique likes having possession? I mean, we're at home. So I expect, us to play a little bit of our game. But again, without Odegaard, for people that say, we haven't lost a game without Odegaard, we also haven't been able to control the midfield at all without him. We haven't even touched the ball for large patches of matches without him. And if you think that's just because that's the way Arteta wanted to play, it's not, so let's see if we can even control a game without Odegaard at home against good opposition. So yeah, Mubarak says, I think Arsenal is not so lucky Odegaard, but team needs quiet reaction from midfield up to the final third. I mean, they slow down the game. I think they played pretty well and quickly against Leicester. I think our attack was fine against Leicester. I think the way that we play in general is slow at times, and it's more because we're always looking for the perfect goal and the perfect opening. So, and I don't know if Odegaard always speeds us up either. I think it's emblematic of the team. The team is attack slow, but we did well against Leicester, but it is Leicester, it's Leicester. We should be able to attack quickly. Cherry on top says, please rest fully, Ben, and come back stronger. So Ben is in contention. Arteta said Ben and Calafiori are in contention for PSG. Now, if you guys are not on Twitter, good for you, because it's not a great place to be at times. But there was like a unconfirmed report from Team News and Ticks that Calafiori had suffered some sort of knee injury celebrating Trossard's goal. And everybody freaked out about it. Not everybody, but a lot of people did freak out. And they started posting pictures of him with leg strapping and all this kind of stuff and saying he was crying in the locker room, only for him to be fine and for him to train today. So Calafiori's good, but Ben White did not train today. And so I would imagine that he won't play, which is fine because Timber is fit. And then the really, really good news is that Marino and Tomiyasu have both taken part in full training. And so with Tomiyasu, I still don't know how far off he is, but for Marino, he's now in contact, so they tried to last week keep him from doing anything with full contact because, the shoulder, but now he's in full training and he's like looking like he's close. Probably, I don't think he'll be able to play against PSG, but maybe at the weekend against Southampton. This is a big, 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 big return. Marino, like I said, I've been harping on it. And the main reason why I continue to harp on it is because I need everybody to hear it. So when they're seeing it, when it's happening, they can say, oh, I remember when Jessica said this. She was right. We have not had a normal midfielder at left center mid, like an 8, like a genuine 8 for a year. All of last season was ridiculous to me. For a team of our level, a club of our level, not to have a balanced, functional midfield is ridiculous. And not to have the pieces in our midfield squad options to create one was like ridiculous to me. But we made it work because we're good enough now where we'll still be able to beat 90% of the teams even without it. Like, that's how good we are now. But those top level games, not being able to control matches, looking weird, especially like in Europe, it was like, gag me. Like, that's just no. So I think Marino, he's not exactly the same as Granit Xhaka, so I'm not going to put that label on him because everybody's like, is he just like Granit Xhaka? No, he's not. But he's an 8. He's a technical 8. He's good off the ball. He's good on the ball. He's an actual 8. He can play DM, but he plays as a left center mid. When he played at Real Sociedad, it was Zubimendi in the 6 and Marino on the left. And so whatever gimmick Arteta was trying to run with Kai Havertz in midfield, this is his, oops, I fucked up. Let me make it right with Marino. And so he'll be able to do all the second striker bullshit, but he'll also be able to drop back, support, Rice or whoever's playing in the 6, with build up. And then he'll also be able to get in and around the box and create those angles and those passes for Martinelli. This is a huge return for us. We have not had a balanced midfield for a year. It's been ridiculous. And it's why our football, I feel like, is not as fluid as it should be. I don't think Arteta doesn't want to play fluid football. I don't think that that's how Arteta thinks. I don't think he's like, I'm Arsenal's manager. And I know that we have this history of being a fluid footballing team, but I want to play anti-football. I don't think that's what Arteta wants. I think he's had to simplify things and maybe play without the ball more because the midfield that we have has no ability to control the game. And so we've seen early on in the season that we've struggled. And some of that is just because you don't have 3 midfielders in midfield, or you have 2 DMs in there and Odegaard, or you have Trossard and Partey and Rice, or you have Havertz and Rice and Partey. None of those midfields are good enough, not to play at the highest level. So Marino, there's obviously like, oh, he's going to have to work for his spot. I don't think he is. I think Arteta is going to put him straight in. And so you can do the math on who probably will drop out of the 11. But think about how good Martinelli has played in the last couple of games or how much better he's looked. Just imagine that with Marino and Calafiori. Arteta said it himself, having natural left footers on the left-hand side gives you so much more and just makes things more natural. It's just going to make it even better not having Rice on that side because I love Rice down. I love Rice down. Like, I think that he's fantastic. But is he a left 8? No. Can he make it work because he's a good player? Yes. But he still does that thing where he kind of dribbles up near to Martinelli and then turns back and passes it backwards, where that pass down the line or that little clip ball into the the channel for Martinelli. Those are just the types of passes that we're not getting at this stage. And so you'll see our left winger, whether that's Trossard or mostly when it's Martinelli, make that run and nobody hits him. And so we're going to get that back, which is going to be amazing. And so, yeah, Moreno coming back is super, super important. And then Tomiyasu also adds a little bit of something. Am I sick of Tomiyasu a little bit? Yeah, I'm sick of him. Like, he's on my last nerve. But if we can keep him from going to international duty and he can give us those 10 games that he gives us in the middle of the season, I'll take those. It is what it is. So I wanted to share my screen really quick just to show you guys like how dire things have been at points. Let's see. Yeah, you guys can see that. So this was December 24th, 2023. I'm trying to think what game this possibly was. Fulham? I don't know. But this is kind of like what we were doing last season, and it just didn't work. I actually think we are at a point now where we should not be beholden to inverted fullbacks, meaning inverting fullbacks is fine when it's an option for you to progress the ball, when it's an option for you to create an overload. But when it becomes your only way of progressing the ball, it becomes a crutch. And I think when we got to certain points last season, it was like Zinni was dropped in so that we could just progress. And I don't think it's necessarily because Rice can't pass. It's because Havertz just is not somebody that's going to drop in and create angles, because progressing the ball as a DM, most DMs don't get the ball and feint and dribble past a million players. Usually they receive it, they have a couple of angles that they can use, they have a couple of players that they can pass to, and you create those little triangles to get beyond the press. 1-2 touches quickly. But when you have Havertz way up there in that second striker role and he's just off in la la land somewhere, or even try to pass it to him, most of the times when you pass it to him in these really difficult positions in the center circle, he loses it because he just doesn't have the ability to wiggle out of pressure. And then you also have Zinchenko, who became a pressing trigger for us. He's somebody that teams know that, yeah, if he gets space and time on the ball, he's dangerous. But if you don't give him that space and time, he's somebody that you can easily take the ball off of, whether he just gives it to you and coughs it up by making a bad pass or holding on to it too long, or they just knock him off the ball because he's physically weak. So this kind of became a little bit of like an albatross for us last season. And so you can just imagine Zinni being Calafiori and Havertz being Marino. It just gives you so much more because Zinni also never overlapped. Calafiori can not only invert, but he can also overlap Martinelli, giving him more central space. But Havertz, if that's Marino, those triangles become so much easier because that player is just going to pass the ball into Martinelli. And also the same thing applies to Rice. He just doesn't have that ability that far forward. So yeah, that side is going to be so much better. But looking at this, the fact that Arteta thought that this was going to work actually is like crazy to me because it just looked wild. Jordan says, I've barely ever seen Havertz lose the ball. And Havertz is press resistant. I hope this is like a joke because if you've never seen him lose the ball, that's funny. But I remember against Fulham early on when he was playing center, and this is like, we haven't seen him play center midfield in a long time or consistently since December of last season. So I'm talking about when he did receive the ball. I think actually the Rashford goal that they scored at the Emirates was actually a direct like consequence of Havertz losing the ball in midfield. He does lose the ball deeper in midfield. He just doesn't have, he's another one that just, if you press him, he's just going to give the ball away. And so, yeah, Havertz in midfield just was never going to work. And then Rice with Jorginho works when he drops in deeper. He was a little bit deeper against Leicester, which worked a little bit better. But ultimately, We just need an 8 in that position, and the faster that we get to that place, the better we'll be. You know, we don't need 2 DMs and 1 DM playing kind of out of position, do we? Boy says Havertz barely loses the ball considering how close opposition is to him when he gets the ball. The problem with Havertz in midfield is that we need stronger striker ahead of him. I actually just disagree fully with that. I think he rarely loses the ball in midfield, mostly because one, we don't pass it to him because we know that he's going to give up the ball. But I'm talking about when he's actually in midfield, further down, not when he's in the second striker role and when he's just kind of floating up front. Not that. When he's deeper in midfield, when he has to make decisions, when the angles aren't natural to him and he can't get to the angles, he does lose the ball quite a bit. But then he also just, I mean, at that point, we weren't even passing him the ball because I remember some of the touches that he had at that time were so low for a midfielder. He like touched the ball maybe 6, 7, 8, 9 times, you know. So that era, I'm so happy for it to be over. Keenan says Zinchenko is quality depth. We need the depth given all of our competitions. Don't care really about Zinchenko, if I'm honest. Like, he can be there, but he's well down the pecking order. He's a good kind of option to have for certain games, but I do think Calafiori kind of renders him kind of like, because it's not like Kivior and Tommy, where those two players don't have, like, they're not really passers like that. Like, they don't show that much personality on the ball that often. Calafiori shows so much range and personality on the ball that Zinchenko is way lower down on the pecking order than he even was last season. And then when you add Miles Lewis Skelly there, who does all the Zinni things, but more athletic, you know, he's more athletic. He's not going to get knocked off the ball. Zinni is really far, like, down the pecking order. So I don't really care that he's there. Like, you know, it's like there's going to be a game where he has to play and we just have to survive it, you know? But I think Calafiori has made him like, he's so far down the pecking order. Dial Square says the variations and unpredictability in buildup on the weekend was magnificent. And I like what you're saying. Like, I do like what you're saying. I think that the variations and the unpredictability that, you know, Timber and Calafiori gave us in terms of their ability to invert, and also they found the passes. They could either pass and move to the center, or they can also overlap, gave us a lot, you know. So yeah, I really like it. Like, I really like what we saw at the weekend. Nuances says Zinni can't defend. We really can't afford that anymore. Boy says the vision, Mr. Happy. You must see the vision. And stop waffling about Havertz in midfield. Listen, I think people think about football very simplistically, and you can play in midfield in a variation of different ways. In the way that he was playing it last season, it didn't work. Maybe as a second striker with, like you guys are saying, a better center striker, maybe it would work. But there's not really any situation at this stage where I would want to see Havertz in midfield in the way that we play it now, in which the left center mid actually has to be a midfielder. So with that in mind, I don't necessarily feel like it's waffling. I feel like you guys are seeing something in the future or with other players that maybe could work if we saw it. But in the way that we're playing right now, with the evidence that we have at this stage, he's not a midfielder for Arsenal Football Club. It doesn't work. We need an actual 8 or a midfielder to play in that position. And so it doesn't work. Bro Pro says Havertz is great off the ball, and that's why he's always going to play. And I'm not advocating for him not to play. I just don't want him to play in midfield. I want him to play up front, you know. So I felt like we fully got away from that now, you know, and so people advocating for it now, it's a little strange. Boy says Waneri should have played last season when our midfield wasn't working. I agree with that. Jordan says we have to remember Havertz is 6'4", just for a guy his size. He has twinkle toes and very light in his feet. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that he's a terrible player. I just, in it, like, when we get in those deeper positions in the center circle, Havertz is not somebody that I want to be my midfielder. He's not necessarily a decent passer. He can't really carry the ball. Like, he's just more somebody that needs those simple angles for him and then being in the box, you know? So for me, it's not Why are we arguing about him being a midfielder for us? Boy says Havertz is a midfielder on the Arsenal website. So, like, what does that mean to me? He's a midfielder. That's what Arsenal want him to be. Well, here's my thing is if Havertz is such a good midfielder and that's what we should be doing, why do we buy Marino? Why isn't Havertz just playing midfield every game now? Why aren't we building around it? Why doesn't Arteta continue with it? If there was no point in buying Marino if Havertz was the perfect left center mid for us. So we've already been through this. Just because you're a midfielder on the website doesn't mean you should be an option for Arsenal Football Club. I don't get it. Dial says second striker, center forward, top of the box, keep him there. I mean, that's completely different than the role that Arteta was needing for that left center mid role. So second striker, center forward is completely different than what's required in that position. We still play it as if Xhaka kind of needs to be there. And so, yeah, Mubarak says Marino is available. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting that people are advocating for Havertz in midfield now. Foxy says Havertz can get bullied in midfield. I just remember us triggering him bad at St. James Park. Lucky to stay on the pitch that day. Much better further up. Now, Foxy, let's not be disingenuous here. Bruno Guimaraes was triggered. He was the one that was running around knocking people out and stuff like that. I think Havertz just put in a hard tackle, which, to be honest, like Newcastle fans cannot complain about because they're supposed to be like the hard-nosed, old school type of team. So the fact that they couldn't take what they were giving was a little bit hilarious. And if anybody was lucky to be on the pitch, it was Bruno Guimaraes, to be honest. So yeah, he didn't. I remember Havertz barely even touched whoever that was, and they flopped around it was so funny. Like it was never a red. It's just crazy, but hitting somebody in the back of the head is like a straight red in most circumstances. But I kind of agree with what you're saying about where Havertz should be playing. He's better much further up. The further back he is, the worse it is. So yeah, Boy says, I've always advocated for Havertz in midfield. I know what I'm seeing. Lucky us, Havertz is such a baller that he could just be played at striker and do a job to the high level. Like I said, if Havertz was supposed to be playing in midfield and he's this great option in midfield and he's the answer, we would have never bought Marino to play in that position. We spent $65 million and he's probably our highest earner. His best position is center forward, and that's why he's playing there mostly now. It'll be interesting when we actually buy a striker to see what Havertz's role will be, because I just don't see it being in midfield, and I'd be very surprised if we went back to that. Because basically what you guys are saying is our starting midfield would end up being Rice, Havertz, and Odegaard, which we completely disbanded in the second half of the season because it didn't work. So for me, it's neither here nor there. Like, we've been through this. It doesn't work. It's been like, it's just done, Keenan says Lewis Skelly and Waneri need to play at least 1,500 minutes this season. If they sit on the bench the entire season, they won't continue to develop, especially since people want Zinni gone in the summer. I agree. I think they should play, we play Preston. I think they should keep their spot for that. Waneri, I would start him against Southampton, or at least give him, it's unfortunate that we messed up the Leicester game so badly that Arteta, maybe he would have given him more minutes had we had been 2-0 up in the 60th minute or something like that, but we weren't, and the game got close. But he also brought him on to save the game, so it's okay to, start using them a little bit more. I don't see why they can't play at this stage. They don't look like they're not ready. It's clear that Heaven and Nichols and these guys are not ready yet, but there's a clear line, I feel like, between Ethan and Miles Lewis Skelly and those players. They could play, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they need to start against PSG, but with the midfield options that we got right now, I wouldn't honestly, I wouldn't be like that. I wouldn't be terrible. Like I wouldn't be like devastated by it. Dial says keep Havertz away from the first phase. And I think Dial makes a really good point here is that in the way that we play with the left center mid now, that player has to be more involved with that first phase, and so unless we can just exist without Havertz having to touch the ball at all and just playing that second striker role, which we tried and it didn't work, we need somebody different there. Johan says, do you see Sterling breaking through now with Martinelli back to his best self? Martinelli is not anywhere near back to his best self. He's not even close. But I think Arteta continuing to start Martinelli this whole time lets us know that, he was starting him when he was not playing well at all. So Martinelli is definitely Arteta's plan A, and Arteta always persists with plan A. So now that he's playing well, he'll continue to start, so which is fine, but if Arteta was willing to play Martinelli through his poor form for a whole year, then yeah, now that he's starting or now that he's playing well, of course he's going to continue to start. Keenan says Havertz will compete with Gyökeres for the starting spot each week. Don't got to worry about Havertz. Exactly. Like once we get a striker, he'll be the backup striker and like option in midfield when we're in a crisis. Like he's not going to be a top quality midfielder for us. Jordan says, damn, I don't know why some of our fans don't rate Havertz. I like him. He's grown on me a lot. Came in clutch time and time again. But Jordan, that's not the conversation that we're having. That's not the conversation that we're having. I think his good form as a center forward is being conflated with him being a good option in midfield. Two things can be true at the same time, that he's done well at center forward and he's one of our most important players now, but that doesn't mean that he's good in midfield. So I don't really know why we're revising history on him as a midfielder. It doesn't work. It never did. It's not the answer. That's why Marino's here. He is the, oops, I made a mistake. Let me go ahead and get in a midfielder that can actually do it. Havertz will continue to play at center forward unless we're in a crisis. And this idea that he's ever going to be a top quality midfield for Arsenal, I don't understand where it's coming from all of a sudden. Like, I don't. Like, he's our center forward. Like, I don't get where it's coming from all of a sudden because, yeah, it just doesn't work. Nuances of Fate says he's done well at center forward, but let's keep him away from center midfield, which, yeah, like, why are we going backwards? Keenan says exactly. Havertz is a really good striker. We will need him. Jesus is really struggling and will be replaced in the summer. And yeah, I look forward to the summer, not because, I'm done with the season or anything, but we're going to have hopefully some major shakeups. I saw some stuff coming out about Arsenal being reluctant to give Partey a new deal, and they should and they should not. They should allow him to go and Jorginho go. Jorginho could take up a coaching role, hopefully at Arsenal, and then we can fully move on in midfield. It'll be interesting to see because Arsenal will eventually want to give somebody the number 10 shirt. Now, I know a lot of Arsenal fans are like, yeah, I'll give it to Waneri. I actually think there's scope and room to buy a big attacking mid signing this coming summer, with Marino able to play DM and Rice hopefully going back to the sixth position. There is scope to bring in a more attacking midfielder to replace Emile and Fabio, because you need to have another attacking option. Odegaard, Ethan, and another attacking option. Marino and Declan Rice. You maybe even have scope to bring in a young DM, or mold Waneri in that role. I don't know, but there's kind of like there could be a lot done in our midfield, and I would love to see us go big in midfield this next summer, and not for like a DM type player, but like an attacking midfielder. I think that's what's missing as well. Like if you have Marino that can do different things. And Marino and like let's use Wirtz as an example. Not that I'm saying that we're going to get him, but let's use him as an example. There'll be games where you'll want to have Marino in, because he's going to give you more of that like sturdiness, whatever. But then there's also games where you're going to want somebody that's going to give you more attack. And what I felt is that the attacking output that we were getting from Emil and Fabio didn't make the lack of defensive, awareness that they had or defensive solidity worth it, because they weren't really getting on the ball. They weren't really influencing the game. They were kind of half chances here and there, kind of getting on the ball, not really, and I think ultimately in an Arsenal shirt, those two players lacked personality. And to be a really good attacker, you have to have a lot of personality. You have to really back yourself. And so I think there is room to bring in a player like that. That doesn't mean that Nwaneri will never play. I think we need to balance our midfield options a little bit more. Right now, having just Ethan and Odegaard is not enough creativity. We don't have enough eights, so we need to even things out. Right now, we're really DM heavy. Jorginho, Partey, and Rice and Marino, that's a lot of more defensive-minded midfielders. We could really do with maybe 2 less DMs, 1 8, or, and another attacking midfielder, So, yeah, Errol says 1-year contract for Partey. Just, no, let him go. What's the point? What is the point of having somebody on £200,000 per week that's going to be a squad player? It's time. Like we don't need to continue, on with it. Why are we so afraid? Why are we so afraid to be without him? There are plenty of teams that play really good football without Thomas Partey in their team, and we could be that place too. Just let him go. Free up those wages. £200,000. You could give that per week to a top quality midfielder that really takes us to the next level, not somebody that's going to end up being a squad player anyway. So we were linked to Javi Guerra, I think he's at Valencia. We were linked to him, and we could actually bring in a young DM to back up Declan Rice, have Marino and a marquee attacking midfielder and Nwaneri and Odegaard. And we're then we have all the options we need, and we're not so DM heavy. Right now, we're really DM heavy. Hold on. Well, come on in then, since you're whining. Don't even doing all that whining outside the door, and then you won't come in. The fuck? ISNG says 1-6 and 1-8 makes sense. I see us going 1 for the price of 2 and getting Bruno G. I think that ship has sailed, but yeah, yeah. There's so many options that we can go for, and again, I think people are holding on to Partey for the wrong reasons. Again, there are other teams that play better football than we do without Partey in their midfield. So it's not like without him, the whole house of cards falls down. Not only that, but the standard for him has dropped massively. I remember 2 years ago when that guy could receive the ball under pressure, feint, pass the ball between the lines. He was elite. This player that we see now is nowhere near it. And so, and his lack of ability, I think, has this whole, well, we need to respect him and give him another contract. I saw somebody compare him to Fernandinho the other day. We don't need to do that. We can just move on. I don't understand why, but Arsenal fans are also very attached to players and the past of who those players are. I think the last 6 months is who you are. The last 6 months is all that's who you are, not 2 years ago. So, 2 years ago, a year, 2 years ago for Jesus, holding on to memories. People were holding on to a meal from 2 years ago. It's like who you are is like 6 months, the 6 months, you know? So he's getting away with a suspect version of himself, and I'm not quite sure why. When you can just play Rice in the 6, that's the position that we bought him for, position he's best in. You know, by a younger DM that has his life ahead of him, 22, 23 years old, that can grow into that position as well and move those wages to a more attack-minded midfielder. Not sure why we would be against it. Keenan says, I think Winery and Marino can rotate depending on how attacking we want to be. Wharton, Simmons, Wirtz, Musiala would complete our midfield perfectly. And that's probably the level that we need to be looking at. Simmons, Wirtz, Musiala. Not sure if we can get any of them, but I would much prefer us like go for something like that that's really gonna like, because again, for people that are, you know, don't think Odegaard should be our end all be all, bringing in a player like Simmons or Wirtz or Musiala to play in that other midfield position, players that have a lot of personality, a lot of I'm going to make it happen, that are not afraid to get on the ball, shoot, score, blah, 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 will take away the burden of Odegaard having to be a top goal scorer, top assister, top creator, drop in deep, do this. It would round out the midfield a little bit better and make the spread the responsibility around a little bit more. And so and then you also would still have Waneri and Marino and Rice, you know, like that's so much better than what we have now. We have too many DMs and too many old guys. Like, time to move on. Time to breathe, you know. Quab says Simmons is average. I don't think so. Junior says, can Jorginho receive a new contract? No. It's time to move on. It's time to move on. Like, I like Jorginho, but move on. ISNG says, I think we need a robust runner. Someone like Valverde would be nice, but alas, I mean, it's like saying, you know, somebody like, you know, we need a striker. Somebody like Holland would be great, but alas, like, you know, it's like some players, it's just like they're such a unique profile that there's not really anybody that will. Hold on, what are y'all doing? Hold on real quick. Hey, what are you doing? Oh my God. So I bought a new little mat to go underneath Bex's bowl, and he's in there eating the mat up and tearing it apart because I didn't let him inside quick enough. Do you see what I'm dealing with? Goodness. Bro Pro says, I love Uncle George. Why not just give him a coaching role? You know, just give him a coaching role. Yeah. ISNG says, what happened to Paquetà's situation? I don't know. And to be honest, Paquetá is just not. I think he's good at West Ham, but I'm not sure that he's somebody that, like, I don't know. It's weird with Paquetá. I'd rather, instead of like Paquetá, like I said, I'd rather us try to go for somebody a little bit more like elite than him. You know, his numbers aren't really that high. Yeah. Simmons, Musiala, Wirtz, somebody of that level. And then the next level down would be Eze for me. You know, because at least I know what I would be getting. You know, Junior says, Jess, do you think Arteta wants a player like Bruno Guimaraes or João Gomez? I mean, I think Edu wanted Bruno Guimaraes, but I think Arteta wanted Zubamendi. So Edu, I think, likes players with more like presence and like more of like the physical players. I think he said that before. And so that's why like he had a lot of influence over that first window. And that's why he brought in like Partey and Gabriel. But I think Arteta prefers thinkers. He likes dual monsters, but he wants thinkers too. And I think that's why he likes Zubamendi now. Do we need to go out there and buy another DM? I don't think Bruno's more of an 8, but with Marino, let's get somebody who's more of an attacker. Do you know what I mean? I think Marino puts enough of a Band-Aid on the 6/8 that to buy another 6/8 when we could just go get somebody that's more of an attacking midfielder. Do you know what I mean? Somebody that's going to really give us numbers in terms of goals. I think we lack goals from midfield at times. And obviously like Rice has done well at times in that position, but you need somebody like that's going to be more attack minded. Do you know what I'm saying? So I think buying Marino means that the 6/8 doesn't need to come in. We've got that. He's that. He can play DM. He can play 8. So let's spend a shit ton of money on an attack-minded midfielder that's going to take away the creative burden from Odegaard and give us those goals that we need in those games, that X factor. I think that's kind of where we're at. But yeah, Paquetá, nah. Jordan says, Eze has no end product. Why the fuck are people so hyped about that guy? He's a midfield version of Adama Traore. I think, listen, if you don't want a player, I think that's fine. Just say that's the player that I wouldn't want at Arsenal. But lying about the player and like really lying about them, I feel like is, saying he's like a midfield Adama Traore is wild to me. When you say somebody has no end product, 11 goals and 4 assists in 27 matches is weird to me. 11 goals and 4 assists? That's not no end product. And that's in like a Crystal Palace side that struggled for a whole half of a season. They didn't even, like, Glasner came in like halfway through. Because remember, Glasner wasn't even there until after we played them and we bopped them, So saying he has no end product and he's like a midfield version of Adama Traore is a lie. So we could just say you don't want the player, saying he's not quality. Eze is definitely quality, but I do think he's a level below Xavi Simons and Musiala and Wirtz, but saying he has no end product and he's Adama Traore is insane because that's not true. ISNG says Alex Baena might not be physical enough, but he sounds like the 8 you're looking for. He's a fantastic player, Alex Baena. But yeah, I think, I don't know about him. It's like almost like he's the type of player I'd like to watch from afar. I can't see him in an Arsenal shirt. Let's see. Mr. Happy says Eze is good 10, but Met 8 and left wing, in my opinion. But that's what you'd be looking for as a number 10. When I'm saying like you want to bring in a more attack-minded player, you're bringing in a number 10, somebody that's going to get goals and assists. So we don't always need them to be like a number 8. Right now, without Marino, we can't even function. But here's the thing too. It's like, if you're somebody that's advocating for Havertz to play as a midfielder for us, then you should have no problem for like an Eze playing there because you're not asking for a number 8. You're asking for more of a number 10. And Havertz is not even really a number 10. He's like a floater, so Eze is more like a number 10. Havertz to me isn't even like a number 10 because he doesn't create, he doesn't do any of that kind of stuff. He just more like floats. So yeah, Keenan says we need a 10 and a 6. I think this is the first time in history me and Keenan have been on the same wavelength in a stream in a long time. But we need a 10 and a 6. Nwaneri and Marino are both really balanced players. I like Wharton as a 6, especially since we aren't 100% sure that Rice is our long-term DM. I mean, I would be very surprised if we spent 105 million on somebody that we weren't sure was going to be a long-term DM for us. I think the only reason why Rice is not playing in the 10 right now is because Arteta fucked up the Havertz left center mid situation. And we had to move him into the 8 because we have no other 8s. He literally is so allergic to 8s. Marino might be the first 8 that he's bought. Like, so I do think he's our long-term number 6, but Wharton would give you something different. He could play with Rice, but Wharton's not a 6. Wharton is not a 6. He cannot, even if you're a ball player and you're better on the ball than Rice, you still have to be able to shield the back line. I do have questions about, I think Wharton is the most dribble pass player so far this season. So I think he can play with Rice. I don't think he can play without a Rice next to him. I think, yeah, if you're looking for more of like the ball playery type, you have to go more for like a Zubamendi. But I do agree with a 10 and a 6. But whoever the 6 is, they need to be able to shield the back line. If you don't have somebody that can shield the back line, you instantly have to play with another DM next to them. So yeah. But yeah, I mean, there should be some big shifts in the summer, but we've kicked so much down the road that I do worry just a little bit. I do worry just a little bit about us being able to get all of that done in one window. Yeah, I wonder, having to get all of that done in one window, because we kicked the winger down the road with Sterling, we kicked the striker down the road, and now we have 2 DMs leaving in one window. So there's a lot I feel like that Arsenal need to do, but yeah, Shamaria says striker 6 and 8. Still feel like we can do like an 8, get, unless the 8 is like super attack minded, like is going to score loads of goals. I feel like it depends on what type of 8 it is, so I don't want another 6/8. I think that's what I'm saying. I don't want another 6/8. And I do agree with Boy saying that we don't really need a 6. We don't. And that's why I'm saying, like, if we do buy a 6, it has to be like a hugely talented young player that we're building for the future. But it's so much less important than bringing in a more attack-minded midfielder. So I would spend almost all of our money on a striker and an attacking midfielder, both with X factor, both with goals. And that's it. Like a striker that scores goals. Yes, I know we need somebody that can pass the ball and link play. But when I say like the main thing that you think about with this player is not linking play, and I don't want a Xerxes. I want a scorer, a goal scorer. We don't need any more players that can link play but don't score goals. So a striker and an attacking midfielder. That's what all of our money should go towards. Anything else is like extra. And X factor, je ne sais quoi, that kind of stuff. Jordan says, just don't want a 9.5. She wants a 9. Exactly. I don't want a 9.5. I'm tired because we have Havertz. Havertz is still going to play lots of minutes. Like he's still somebody that's important to the team. Even with us bringing in a striker, it's not like we'll never see Havertz again. He can do all the 9.5 stuff. He can do basic linking of play. He can float. He could do a lot of different things, and he can score goals, and he's a presence in the box. But we need a 9, like somebody who's, when you think about them, you think goals, and I think people are being a little bit disingenuous about, yeah, but we need them to be able to do all of this other stuff. It's like, but we've had that, we don't need another Jesus. We need a goal scorer, and let's just try it for once. Let's just try buying somebody that just is a goal scorer. Let's just try it. And I know Aubameyang was that at first, and it didn't work, but that was years ago. The team wasn't even anywhere near as developed as it is now, So yeah, Shamaria says Gyökeres or Isak, please. Mr. Happy says Sesko and Nico Williams. I'm over the Nico Williams thing, genuinely. Like, I'd actually much rather us focus on a striker and an attacking midfielder than a winger at this stage. Because I just have this gut feeling that we're going to just make Sterling permanent because we kicked that down the road, and we'll just continue to kick it down the road, especially if Martinelli comes back into form. Burmy says, I like Isak, but the injuries are concerning. I think Gyökeres would be a better long-term option. I actually think Sesko is the one that we'll go after. I feel like that makes more sense it's a more Arsenal-friendly thing. To be honest, I think that means that Havertz won't be totally out in the cold. He's somebody that they can develop into the striker that they want him to be. Um, he's younger. I feel like that's how Arsenal are thinking. So yeah. But that's just me. Um, Marino completed full first team training today with no concerns. I am told the midfielder has a huge chance of making the squad for PSG. The midfielder is pushing hard to be included. Let's fucking go. Let's go. I'm ready. I'm ready for a midfielder. Oh my gosh. BroPro says Sesko signed a new deal. No, signing a new deal doesn't mean you can't leave. And I feel like the only reason why he signed it was one, so that Leipzig could make sure that they got more than what they were going to get, because I think the initial release clause would have been like 50 million or something like that. And then like the idea that Leipzig are not going to sell this player is they're a selling club. He is going to leave. I think the only thing that kept him from coming to Arsenal now is he wasn't going to start. And he only had 1 year at Leipzig prior to that. So he has more time to develop. There's no reason to sit on our bench. So signing a new deal doesn't mean that you won't leave the very next summer. Leipzig are a selling club. If we come with 75 million for him, they'll sell him. Graham says, I think the current striker market, Gyökeres is the best fit. Go and pay the release clause. I just don't see Arsenal doing that. I mean, I know that there's still like all these things about Arsenal are going to scout him, but Arsenal also never pivot away from the original person that they wanted. If they wanted Sesko, I think they'll get him. And I like Sesko. He's scoring goals. He does have he does have like the gonna be a big number 9. In the near to future. So yeah, Gyökeres, I like him too, and I would take him in a heartbeat. I just don't see Arsenal doing that. Arsenal should prioritize. Yeah, the only thing that we ever see about Gyökeres is that Arsenal are looking at him. They're scouting him. So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, let's see. In terms of PSG tomorrow, am I excited? Yeah. Somebody said, are you excited for the game tomorrow? Yes, I am. I think this is probably the first Champions League game that I've actually been excited for, because I just feel like there's going to be some real top quality players on the opposite team, and we'll be at home, and it's an opportunity to take a big scalp. Now, it's not like a Real Madrid scalp or anything like that, but it's a team with so much quality that if you were to beat them, that would give you so much gas. I really do rate João Neves. I think he's great. Vitinha, cinema. Zaire Emery, cinema. Barcola. There's a lot of really good players there. And so I think it's okay that Ben probably won't play, because I think Timber is a better 1v1 defender. You're going up against probably one of the most in-form attackers in Europe right now in Barcola. And so we're going to need our best 1v1 defenders for that. Dembele won't be there, so I'm not quite sure what they're going to do instead. But that's fine. But they're more smaller technical midfield against our bigger dual-winning midfield, I think will be interesting. I don't think we didn't really play against Bayern. I think we struggled to really get into our game, and I think this team needs to learn that, and Arteta too, that Champions League is really about the individual quality, and you have to kind of let your players play. Playing the same way that we play in the league, in the Champions League, isn't going to work. And so the individuals have to come up with the moments. And I think we struggled with that against Atalanta. I thought that was probably our worst game of the season in terms of we didn't show ourselves at all. Defensively, we got away with it because Raya saved the penalty, but we really should have lost that game. So you think about having to play up against actual quality players, individuals, we really need to show ourselves. And I think that's what we've been asking for our team to actually just play, and don't be so afraid to concede that you don't show yourselves up front, and so big game for Saka. You have a game like you did against Leicester where in the first half, you created so many chances and stuff. Really need to see him have that Bayern goal moment again, where he really does the business. I think Havertz has also been a little disappointing in the Champions League at times because he fades, so it's going to be a big game for Havertz too. Big game for everyone. And I wonder what midfield Arteta is going to go with, because even though Marino is going to maybe be in the squad, I would imagine that he would go with there's Rice and Partey, and then there's going to be that additional spot. Now, is he going to cave into fire in the belly, Jesus, Champions League Jesus? I wouldn't. I'd play Havertz up front, and I'd play either Trossard, who I don't love, but in midfield, or Wineri. I feel like that's what you have to go with. I think do not get sucked into Champions League Jesus. It's just not worth. It's not worth putting Havertz in midfield for. So, yeah, I think that's but we're at home, and if we go in there and pack it in and try to play on the counter, we will either lose or draw. I think we have to play our game, and back our good defenders to defend, and our good center back, or it's not a good center back, our good goalkeeper to goalkeep. If we don't, we won't win. It'll take one goal for them to score, and then we'll just be ass after that. So yeah, no. Boy says, I believe what Arteta is going for is attacking mids that can beat their markers and a DM as a pivot to select for footedness so that the team naturally plays to the stronger side. Burmy says, for me, Jesus is no longer a starter unless we don't have any other options. Trossard, Havertz can alternate playing up front. Lionide says PSG will score early in the second half. Shamari says that Atalanta game was a eyesore, and Jordan says Cole Palmer is a player that single-handedly can win games for his team, and we don't have any players in our team that can do that. They rely on the system to get over the line. I mean, but it's kind of like this conversation about having players that can win you games is so old and stale, because they said after the Bayern game they needed players that could do that, and they chose not to bring any players in like that. And so that's no shade to Calafiori or Marino. But when we were thinking going into the window about players that were going to win our games single-handedly, I think most of us were thinking about a striker, a winger, and an attacking mid. And so we didn't do that. And that's why when we go into the market this summer, we need to spend a shit ton of money on an attacking midfielder and a striker. Those are the two positions that are going to give us the goals that we want, that X factor that we need. So we didn't do it. And so we have to rely on the system. But even relying on the system doesn't mean the players that we have now that are good can't step up and create those moments. I think Trossard is the only player that I can think of that can create moments out of kind of nothing. And even those are like not that often. But Kai, Saka, Odegaard at times to just play too much within themselves in Europe. And so they kind of need to like make it happen themselves, or we're not going to win this game. PSG are not going to play within themselves. They're going to play their game. They play all the time their game, because they are the best team in their league, and it's open, and the individual talent shines all the time. With Arsenal, It's very rigid, so you got to let your players play, Mikel. Like, you got to let your players play. You got to give us a little bit of, just relax, and you're at home. If you concede, that doesn't mean that you're going to lose the game, so, but we're playing not to concede. TB says, fire in the belly, my ass. Get Jesus out. His appearance has been underwhelming. Please don't cave in, Mikel. It's just not, it's not tea. Like, just no. Johan says PSG is more conservative in Champions League, though. Let's see. Let's see. Even their version of conservative, I don't think is going to be sitting in their box like Leicester did. I still think their individuals are going to show their quality. But if we give them the opportunity to be more adventurous by sitting in deep ourselves or not playing our game, they will impose themselves on us. Burmy says Trossard is our best finisher. Even when I start thinking he should be subbed, he pulls out a goal. You know what's so funny about that, Burmy? Is that I actually saw people saying when we needed a winner to take Trossard off and bring Jesus on. And I just thought this fan base is so like, they don't have like, they're not thinking. If you need a goal, you keep Trossard on, especially if the other option is just Jesus. Bringing Jesus on for a goal is like the weirdest thing I've ever heard. And then Trossard like scores the winner. I'm just like, you guys, like, I could understand more if the person on the bench was like Martinelli, but it wasn't. It was Jesus. You don't ever bring Jesus on for a goal. Bro Pro says, I like Jesus in Champions League. I mean, he played against Atalanta, and I think he had to come off early, and he had the captain's armband. I think Jesus has a good, how do I say this? Jesus has a good record in the Champions League, but for us, I don't think he's done enough to justify us not only throwing Havertz in midfield, which throws our midfield off and makes it not work, but take away our best striker to compensate for somebody who right now is not playing well, so yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's worth it. Bring him off the bench. He did well against like Sevilla, but Sevilla were awful. Against Lens, he was okay. I don't know. I don't know if it's worth it. Bring him off the bench, if we need him, like he did against Bayern. John says Jesus is finished. He's good on the wing now. I don't even know if he's that good on the wing. I just think his skill set right now is more suitable to the wing. But is he actually good on the wing for us? I don't know. TV says if Jesus and Trossard start together, I'm sure Trossard will score. Die Hard says, I will be here to laugh at all the Jesus haters, just like the Kai haters from last season. Funny shit. One thing I'm just like, Jesus is just not somebody that I feel like is going to come good for us this season. So hopefully maybe he does, but I don't know. Jesus is not a hill I would die on. TB says Jesus and a striker. He's just an extra body. He doesn't nothing for than jinky. And I think to be honest, I think we've progressed beyond the need for jinky. I think we're so good now that we don't need a center forward to drop. I mean, what game did he play? He played against Bolton. And he was holding on to the ball too long. He was trying to over dribble. He couldn't score to save his life. And this was like Bolton. Sterling scored. Kai came out there for 5 seconds and scored. Like, Waneri scored in the same move that Jesus missed the ball, which he always does. When you slide it across the 6, he always misses the ball for some reason. And so I think we've graduated beyond needing jinky. We need a genuine goal scorer. And I think the players that are most likely to score need to be on the pitch. And he's probably our least likely to score. And that's not like, I don't think that's even bad to say. Kai's more likely to score. Trossard's more likely to score. And Sterling's probably more likely to score. Martinelli's more likely to score. So yeah, I don't know why we would start him. And Arteta tried. He started him with the captain's armband against Atalanta, and he was really poor, so yeah. BroPro says starting Partey is always going to be a worry. Zaire, Emery, and Barcola going to run rings. We shouldn't be in a position to have to rely upon Partey, but we are, and it probably will start. I think Arteta will go safe and will go with Rice and Partey in midfield. Whoever was saying Jorginho and Partey would start, that doesn't make sense because Rice is here. He's going to start. Like, let's be serious. And then he'll go with one of Kai or Trossard in midfield. I think he'll go with Trossard and Kai because they'll swap positions and stuff. But yeah, it sucks. Jordan says, can someone tell me what Jesus was thinking confronting Holland after the City game? I don't know. Boy says, true. TB, Magalhaes is more likely to score than Jesus. Die Hard says, remember when Kai was a waste of money and people were saying he's the reason Odegaard was bad? No, I don't think they were saying that Kai was the one that was making Odegaard bad necessarily. I think actually they're saying more he was making Martinelli bad. But, I mean, he wasn't good in midfield. So at that point, he was impacting everybody in midfield and the left-hand side. So, and I still don't even think that Kai Havertz is a player that has justified the 65 million. I still think he's like a 40 million pound player. And in both positions that he's meant to be covering, we still need to buy players in those positions. So, yeah, the Kai Havertz, we won with Kai Havertz is not the win that I feel like people think it is. Like, we've made it work, like, and he's playing well for us, but it just wasn't a signing that we had to make, or even at this stage it doesn't make sense. John says Jesus was good coming off the bench versus Bayern, and that's what he should do. He should come off of the bench. So yeah, but Jesus, even comparing Kai to Jesus, and like Jesus is going to come good just like Kai came good. The situations are so different that I feel like you can't even compare them. Jesus had 3 good months at Arsenal and has never looked the same since that injury. So, and Kai Havertz and Jesus have 2 completely different mentalities. Kai Havertz is a fighter, he's a battler, and he doesn't let things get in his brain. He has a strong mentality. Jesus is different. He doesn't have as strong of a mentality. And Kai is like, I know what I can do for the team. And he was never a number 9 to begin with. So he doesn't have the burden of being a number 9 and having to score, where Jesus literally has the number 9 on his back and knows he's not living up to it. So for me, even comparing Kai and Jesus in that way, like, well, Kai came good, so that means Jesus is going to come good. The situations are so different and the players' mentalities are so different, which is the biggest problem for Jesus. It's not that he's not talented. His mental is fucked. His mental is fucked. You can tell he's overthinking everything. I always said Martinelli was most likely the one that was going to come back for us. So, and Martinelli looks like he's coming back. So Jesus, let's see. But I wouldn't necessarily that would not be a hill that I would die on, is Jesus is going to come good for us because Kai came good for us. It's not the same. Brian says when Jesus does the thing wrong, he gets emotional and it affects his game. Compared with Trossard, Martinelli, or Saka, he needs to be a mentality monster like Calafiori. Yeah, this is coming from somebody who really loved Gabriel Jesus when he was at City, and also followed him really closely at the international level as well. Jesus, his mentality and how he gets in his own head is his biggest problem. And I don't actually see anything different this season. He still looks way too tense. He's overthinking everything. And if you can't score against Bolton and it looks like an impossible task, I'm not starting you against PSG. So yeah, he got barely any minutes against Leicester too. We needed a goal, and Arteta didn't put him in until the game was won. So to waste time, basically, Jesus came out there, which shows you what Arteta thinks about him as well. So yeah, Havertz, the mentality of Havertz and Jesus is so completely different. So yeah, they're not the same people. So Boy says we will probably get Hato and Diamande in the summer. I don't want Hato and Diamande. Why are we buying more defenders? John says, I can see Waneri bailing us out in some of these games this season. New Music says, I've always give props to Arteta for great decisions he's made, but the decision to enter the season with just Havertz and Jesus or Trossard as striker options might be his downfall. And Diehard says, Jesus is a 4-time champion. Like I said, I will be there. That's fair enough. Jesus is just that. It's going to be. I just hope he doesn't start against PSG. I don't think we need to start him. I think you can go in with the exact same team that started against Leicester. And that's what we probably should do. Why switch it up? And he had his chance. I think Arteta gave him his chance against Atalanta and also gave him a chance against Bolton. Drew blanks in both of those. This performance against Bolton wasn't like the worst thing in the world, but it wasn't good either, so I think it's okay. Boy says it's exactly because we don't want more defenders that we get Hato and Diamande. If you want to get a striker and a good attacking midfielder that's actually going to take us to the next level, what money are you going to have left to bring in these players? I think you could bring in maybe one of those and probably be okay. And I get what you're saying about getting rid of Tomiyasu and Zinchenko in the summer, which is basically what you're alluding to. But, this is not a priority. This is not a priority. I don't want to see any defenders before we bring in those attackers. We need them. John says Havertz should start versus PSG at center forward. At center forward, please. And it should just be the same that started against Leicester. Why not just start that same team? I thought that was the attack looked good. The rotations looked nice. There's no point in changing it now too, because you want to get some continuity going. The only change that I would make, I actually wouldn't make any changes, so Waneri coming in, if we need something, Sterling coming in if we need something, and then Jesus if neither of those things work for us. So yeah. Bro Pro says I want attackers, tired of eating salad. TV says no more defenders, shaking my head. Are we Stoke? Where the attackers or the goals? Where are the attackers, the goal scorers? Arteta is brainwashing these people. I get what Boy is saying about we don't want to have to buy any more defenders, so we need to continue to buy defenders because the ones that we have are not reliable. That being said, I don't think we need to. If you buy Diamande and Hato, you're not getting both an attacking mid and a striker. So you probably just need to get one defender if you sell the others. If you sell Zinchenko and Tomiyasu, you can reinvest that money maybe into one defender that can just take their position. Whether that's just a plain old center back or, another player that can play across the back line. I don't really care, but whatever money we have up front has got to go to attackers. I'm so sorry. Yeah. Natalie says, when you play Marino, Tommy White now after international match, Marino, Tommy White. Marino, the minute that he can fully play, I'd play him, I'd start him. So yeah, but I think with Tomiyasu and White, I think White, because he's been dealing with injuries basically the whole time he's been here and he's played through a lot of them. I think it's a good time to allow him to rest. I feel like the next time that, unless something were to happen, meaning Timber got injured or something, knock on wood, the next time that I'd probably look to play White is possibly Preston, that might be too far. Because we have PSG, Southampton, Bournemouth, and Shakhtar, and then Liverpool. Against Liverpool, I think you have to start Timber. So maybe you could start White against, Preston. Preston, start him then. But allow him to fully, whatever he's dealing with, let him fully get fit. Don't rush him. Tommy, same thing. I would keep him from going to international duty. If he goes to Japan duty, I'm fucking done. Seriously. But Tommy, you don't need to rush him in. You could play him against Preston too. You could play him against Preston, maybe get him and White some minutes against, like, if they're fit, against Southampton and Bournemouth. But yeah, I wouldn't be like desperate or rushing, especially because Calafiori and Timber look so good, Um, so yeah, Diehard says if we play Jorginho, we will lose badly. PSG are very good. They will run over our midfield. They're going to run over our midfield regardless who at the 6, unless it's Declan Rice. Genuinely, I don't know if you guys haven't been really watching our games, but anybody runs through our midfield right now. They run right past Thomas Partey. He doesn't stop anybody unless he fouls them. So whether it's Jorginho or Partey, the hyper focus on Jorginho is funny, considering the athleticism and the physical attributes right now for both him and Partey are quite similar. Neither one of them are stopping anybody from running through this midfield. So either one, you're in a pickle. So the only DM that we have that's stopping opposition attacks without actually having to like foul and do the fouls or whatever is Rice. So but Jorginho is probably not going to play. It's going to be Thomas Partey. But Aston Villa ran through our midfield. Wolves ran through our midfield. We couldn't do anything against City really. Tottenham controlled midfield and ran through it. Like right now, like neither one of Partey or Jorginho are stopping anybody. So yeah, Boy says Tomiyasu is absolutely getting another international cap if he has to, he has got to stay home. John says I'm dying to see Rice back in the 6 full time. Hope Marino and Waneri are in midfield. Yeah. BroPro says, like Arteta said, why wear flip-flops in the rain? Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear what people are saying about. I hear the Jorginho thing, but I do think it's like focusing on Jorginho when he's not going to start games and he's basically the El Neni. It feels weird to me because it's like the only reason why Jorginho ever plays for Arsenal is mostly because people are not available. So Jorginho is actually not a massive problem in this team. If you don't like seeing the squad players play, then you need to ask questions of the players that are actually supposed to be starting. You know what I mean? And so when people complain about Trossard, I'm like, well, why is Trossard playing so much? Trossard's playing so much because like Jesus and Martinelli aren't playing well. Martinelli's come back into form, but you know what I mean? So it's like, if you don't want to see those players play, which they're like third choices in the pecking order, which is fine, then ask questions of the players that are starting because they shouldn't even be starting, So I never really have a problem with Jorginho. He is what he is, We know that he's not a physically, capable player, but actually, the player that's actually supposed to be physically capable is the one that's getting torn through because he's playing every game, So yeah. Keenan says Martinelli's back to form. What did I say, bitches? New Music says Jorginho is our current El Neni. Exactly. I don't know why people talk about him. I genuinely don't. It's like, but Jorginho's going to ruin our games. Remember what he did against Spurs? I mean, it's like, that was like so long ago. And that was like one thing. And to be honest, the best we played last season was when he was in the team. So, yeah. Diehard says exactly. He can play against Preston. Definitely not PSG in the Champions League. I think you're talking about White. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah, there you go. There we go. Guys, let's go ahead and start wrapping up. I want to remind you guys just one more time that, I'm giving away tickets for the PSG game. So that will close at 8 a.m. UK time tomorrow. So here's how you're going to get your tickets. I have to be so careful on Twitter because it's basically porn on here all the time. But here is the tweet. So go on X/Twitter, whatever you want to call it. And you go to this tweet. It's pinned on my account, giving away the 2 tickets. They're courtesy of Comavi, who I'm working with. They are in partnership with Arsenal to be the #1 e-commerce store for football fans. How to enter: follow Jessica Black TV and She Knows Arsenal on Twitter, X. Follow Comavi Official on X, and then repost this tweet. This is only open for residents of the UK and Ireland, and the participants have to be 18 years or older. And the giveaway will close at 8 a.m. British Standard Time tomorrow, and I will announce the winner shortly after. I know it's a little short notice, but listen, if you're in the area and you want to go to this game, then you can get to the Emirates. I would enter. So yeah, and we'll do plenty more of these throughout the season. So don't fret if this is not something that you can do at the moment. Let's see. Cherry on top says, is there starting lineup for Ben over Timber this season? Is the starting lineup for Ben? Here's the thing is, though, is like, I think people are getting a little too like thing about the Ben White Timber thing. I saw some people saying earlier that people don't appreciate Ben and new shiny toy syndrome with Timber, and White is da-da-da. And I'm like, personally, my personal opinion is that Timber is a better footballer than Ben. And if Timber is fit, he will be very difficult competition for Ben for right back. And I think the last couple of games that Timber has played there, I don't think you can deny what I'm saying. The one thing that always the caveat for me is that I like competition for places. And I think Ben having genuine competition for his position is good. So he has started the season poorly, Ben, and I've said that multiple times. I think, I don't know if it's complacency or, underlying injuries or something like that, but I don't think that he started off the season well. And so if having somebody that can take your position, can give him a kick up the ass, that would be a good thing for us, because a good Ben is fantastic for Arsenal. And this is the type of depth that we've always wanted, so it's not a big deal. But I do think people are conflating people wanting Timber to start with people not rating Ben. And I don't think that that's necessarily true. I rate Ben so highly. I think he's fantastic. But there are gaps in his game that are very obvious. He could be better in the final third, for sure. And he's not the best 1v1 defender. He's better in the box, mostly because he's a natural center back, so there's nothing wrong with it. That doesn't mean we'll never see Ben again. But what it does mean is that we don't have to rush Ben back and make him play injured, which he does very often for Arsenal. So I think you have to be careful of conflating people rating Timber or being excited about Timber. And it's just, they only care about new things. Just think that, when you look at Calafiori and Timber, and like, let's say you look at Tommy and White, who, if all four of them are fit, or if Tommy and Ben are fit last season, they're our starting fullbacks, right? Because you're not going to start Zinchenko, so they'll be our starters because Timber was injured. When you look at Calafiori and Timber, I just feel like they have a roundness to their game and just more tools in the toolbox. And it would take players of Calafiori and Timber's level to unseat those two, because they're so good. They were big parts of one of the best defense in the league last season. So it's not that they're not good. And they're definitely add so much to the team. When Tommy's fit, there's some times where he does things and I'm like, damn, Tommy is really, really good. We just don't get to see it enough because he's not fit all the time. And Ben also is really consistent. But I'd be lying to you if I said, if I was saying that I didn't think that Timber and Calafiori have just a little bit more to their game, which will give us that fluidity that we saw against Leicester and the ability for them to pick out passes, go central and underlap, and also overlap and find those intricate passes. That's not just like, it's because of the system. It's because their individual talent. They have more things that they can do in those positions. And so I don't think it's that big of a deal. But if Ben is your hill to die on, this is a big fucking deal. So I get it. But I don't think it's that big of a deal. I really don't. He'll play for sure, Ben. Like Arteta loves Ben down. Ben is not going anywhere. So yeah, Keenan says Timber and White are very similar in terms of quality. They are big boys that can battle it out. Keenan says, I know Trossard and Raheem aren't spring chickens, but we're blessed to have two experienced wingers that are able to come off of the bench and give high levels. I agree. So yeah, Bropo says now I'm leaning towards Timber right back over Ben after that performance. And it won't take but a performance from Ben to switch it back. I think my personal preference would be Timber, just slightly over Ben. But, there's some games where people prefer, like when Sterling played well against Bolton, people are like, start Raheem Sterling. And then the very next game, Martinelli plays well, and it's like Martinelli, so things change based on the performances. We have such a good squad now, and I think that we should relish the quality that we have rather than being always butthurt because like our favorite player is not always playing, or there's somebody that can compete for a spot. This is not Chambers anymore. This is not Cedric. Ben is going to have to fight for his position, and hopefully that gives us a better Ben. DAJ says Ben is the right back of this team, period. Keenan says Timber gets caught out a lot. I think that will become more clear over time. I think they are pretty similar. Fair enough. I don't think he gets caught out. I actually think he's just a better defender than Ben, 1v1. But we will see. But yeah, I love them all. And, when you're complaining or, whatever, you're having conversations about Ben, Timber, Calafiori, and Tomiyasu, these are first world problems. Natalie says, do you stay Sterling or back Chelsea next season? Personally, I think that we will make him permanent because that's how Arsenal kick the can down the road just a little bit longer, because they're not going to be able to get a midfielder and a striker and a winger in one window. Arsenal don't have the facilities for that. But right now, from what I've seen, I wouldn't keep him. I don't think he's done enough, but it's early, but I think Arsenal will make him permanent. I just feel like they weren't able to get Nico Williams, and they won't be able to get Nico Williams. And as we saw, they decided not to do anything, so they'll wait for the next Nico Williams to come along and go after them. But they weren't interested in, a Matoma or an Adingra or, they weren't interested in any of those types of players. So, but they know Sterling, and Sterling also allows for Martinelli to continue to start. So, yeah. Diehard says Timber is better at everything, actually. It's almost like Arteta bought him to replace Ben. I mean, I think if you like Ben a lot, then you won't rate Timber as much. But if you don't like Ben, you'll think Timber is the best thing since sliced bread. They're both really good. Like, I don't know. Jordan says, if we buy Sterling, then we are not ambitious. I'd rather no winger than signing him permanent that's going backwards. So, no winger versus having Sterling, is it really going backwards? I think it's just maybe not moving forward. It's staying the same. Bropro says it's going to be like Trossard, like contract, maybe if the fee is right. Yeah, it'll be like a Trossard-y type of thing. I just think Arsenal are very slow, and they can't get the perfect signing. They're not going to do it, especially when it comes to attackers. I kind of wish they had the same, like the way that they're desperate and they continue to buy left backs until they get it right, or buy goalkeepers until they get it right. I wish they did the same thing with attackers. Like they just kept buying until it got right. I know I don't want them to necessarily do it Chelsea, but I'd rather them be, it's like they're very afraid about buying attackers for some reason. I don't know if like Willian scarred them or something and he was like on a free, but they're very like thing about buying attackers. They if it had not been Sterling, by the way, somebody that Arteta knew, I don't think we would have gotten anybody. Because, I mean, Edu pretty much said so. We weren't going to get anybody. So I just wish they were more into buying attackers, like, and just keep buying until it just worked. But whatever, you know. But yeah. Sorry. Lionide says his name is Benjamin. Diehard says I like Ben, but I see limitations in my players. Jordan says Edu Gaspar works hard, but he is not elite as a sporting director. We need someone better to take us to the level of City and Madrid. Let's see what else. I think that's it, guys. I think we should go now because it's been 2 hours. And this is always supposed to be an hour, but we always go over. But like I said, if you guys are like, well, what was your starting 11? My starting 11 was the same 11 that started against Leicester. I don't feel like there's any reason to change it, especially when that was our best attacking performance of the season. So why change? I am excited about tomorrow. My only thing is I just want to see them loosen up a little bit. You know, I just want to see them loosen up just a little bit. But if I have to guess, I feel like we'll play pretty much how we always do. Let's see. Arsenal and Real Madrid are amongst a host of European clubs that have shown interest in signing Palmeiras center back Victor Reyes. I don't care about that. Tell me that we're looking at a striker. You know. But yeah, make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel, and all that kind of stuff. And get into, you know, that giveaway if you guys are interested in it. And we will talk to also we are obviously there's going to be a watch along for tomorrow's game. I haven't set it up yet because I'm kind of like lame like that and I forgot to. But what I'll do is I will set it up and then I'll do a post on here so that you guys can have the link for it. And maybe I'll do a little live before the game to remind you guys that we're going to be on Big Up tomorrow, formerly TIFO, for the watch along. And then we'll do player ratings after. So yeah, but really enjoyed the stream. Love you guys to death. I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Bye guys.